In today's video, we are going to build a control-based CRUD API from scratch using ASP.NET Core Web API, Entity Framework Core, and SQL Server. CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, and Delete. These are the functional blocks of any data-driven application. We are going to implement these operations directly inside our API controller using EF Core database context. This is the most straightforward, high-performance way to get a RESTful API up and running quickly. By the end of this video, you will have complete working code and understand exactly how to handle HTTP request against a live database. Let's get into it. Let's find out our agenda for today. We will start with a brief overview of what is Web API and how data travels through it. Then we will look at Entity Framework Core to see how it acts as a translator between our C Sharp classes and our SQL database. Finally, we'll spend the majority of our time in Visual Studio for a complete hands-on demo where we will create our database tables, build our certification control, and execute live tests. Before we dive into the core implementation, if you are new here, please subscribe to our channel. Click on the bell icon to get updates from our channel. First, what is an ASP.NET Core Web API? It is an open source cross platform framework built for developing HTTP services. In plain terms, it acts as the bridge allowing different frontends like a React application, a mobile app, or even an IoT device to securely talk to a backend server. As the diagram shows, when a client sends a HTTP request, it lands on an action method inside our web API controller. The controller handles the request, reads or writes data to our data store, and returns a clean HTTP response, typically as JSON or XML, back to the client. It is ideal framework for creating fast RESTful applications on .NET. What is EF Core? To talk to our database without writing raw SQL queries, we use Entity Framework Core. EF Core is a lightweight open source object relational mapper called ORM. Let's look at how it processes our queries. Your code interacts with C Sharp objects and runs LINQ queries against a DB set. The DB context is a single gateway that manages your database configuration and handles the connection. When you ask for data, the EF core engine uses a LINQ translator to convert your expressions into an abstract SQL query. At the same time, the model builder ensures your C Sharp classes lines up perfectly with your database tables. A pluggable database provider package like SQL Server takes that query, turns into a standard SQL, and runs it over an ADO.NET connection. The SQL database processes the query, return the rows of data, and EF core materializes them cleanly back to your C Sharp objects for your code to use. So this is our project structure we are going to create. We are going to add couple of packages related to entry framework. Then we'll create a database, a table in the SQL Server Management Studio. We will add a model folder called certification. We will add AppDbContext, and in the control we will add all CRUD operations for certifications, and we will add a connection string in the app settings. We will register our services AppDbContext, and at the end we will put a scalar and test all our API endpoints. Let's jump into our coding demo. First, open Visual Studio, select ASP.NET Core Web API template, name your project, and choose .NET 10 as your target framework. Make sure you select Use Controller checkbox. Now, this is the project I created. Now, let me go and just delete this weather forecast. To start with EF Core, we have to go and add the packages. Let's add the package. Let's add another package for SQL Server. In the meanwhile, let's go to the database. In the meanwhile, let's create a database and our table. Database is created. Let's create the table and the data. Now we have a certification table with the basic data available. Now let's go back to Visual Studio. Our packages got added. Now let's create couple of folders. So I created a data and model folder. So let's add a model. So we need to use the exact fields in the database table. Let me get them. So these are the fields we used within the database table. So we added database columns as properties over here. Now let's go to our data. We will add one new class saying that AppDbContext. Now here we need to use our entity framework. Let's use the namespace of entity framework. Let's add the DB context. So here we need to refer our database table as a DB set. Let's add the namespace. Now in the program.cs, let's register our AppDB context. Now we need to add our connection string. Let's go to the app settings. So this is our connection string. So let's use that in the program.cs. So let's put our DB context here. Let's add the namespace. Yeah, now the connection is added. Now let's go and add a controller. Now let's add a controller. In the API, let's take the empty one. We'll just say as cert controller. As we registered our AppDB context in the program.cs, so let's inject here. Let's add the namespace. Now we will make an endpoint to read our certifications. Let's build the code. Yeah, the build is succeeded. To test the endpoints, let's add a scalar. So let me quickly add a package. Scalar package is added. Now let's go to the program.cs. Let's use like Swagger. Scalar will help you to test endpoints. I have a detailed video you can go and watch. Let's enable by default the scalar. So I'll make this to true, and we'll say launch URL to scalar/v1. So that is the endpoint. Let's run the app. The app is running at 7150. Now you can see Scalar is enabled. Now this is our get endpoint. Let's go and invoke. Let's see how this is working. It's making a call to api.cert, which is our get endpoint. And within here, it is trying to take the entity framework DB context. Certifications is our table within the AppDB context. Make sure that this is your table name and it is trying to get the all the data from here. In this way, you can easily enable entity framework core to talk to your database. So let's add few more endpoints. So I have the code base available for other endpoints. Let me get those. Now let's understand the code. The one which we added is reading all certificates. This particular endpoint is basically reading single certificate endpoint by the ID, and within the DB context database table, it is trying to returning the ID specific data, and we are returning that certification. Now, if you look at the third endpoint, which is HTTP post, if you want to add a new certificate, we are passing from body, and this is the model. And here within the DB context, we are trying to add that certificate. And to save the changes, you have to call save changes async. Then we are returning the newly created certificate. Now, if you look at the last endpoint, which is a update endpoint, we are trying to take a specific ID and the updated model. And for that particular ID, it is going and changing the state to modified, and it will save the changes. So these are the three other endpoints. Let's quickly test them. If you see here, we got three more endpoints. Let's first test specific ID. Now if you go and pass one here, it will return the certificate which is specific to ID1. And if you look at our database, and if you say here where ID equal to, so AZ900 is the one, it is returning the same. Now let's look at the post endpoint. So let's pass the request. If you look at the database, I did not add this certification. And if you look at this exam code entry, we don't have data available. So let's send this request. So we need to send our data as a request body. So let me get that. So I prepared this data. So now let's push it. Now if you see here, we got 201 created and the data is returned. And if you look at the code for the HTTP post, we are sending certification model and adding that model to our DB set, and we are doing a save. Automatically entity framework will go and add this record. And now if you look at the database, now this record is added. Let's test the last endpoint, which is update. Let's test our update endpoint. Let's test this request. So the newly created ID is 12. So let's pass that. Let's pass our model data. This time I'm changing the title to new. Previously it was only up to specialty. So let's run this. Now we got 204 no content, which means it is updated. If you see previously we don't have new here, but let's run this. Now it is updated to new. If you look at the code, we are passing the ID and the updated model, and it is going and changing the state to modified, and it is changing the updated model. With this, we are done with the demo. Basically, we created two entity framework packages. We created a certification model and the DB context, and we added a connection string in app settings. In the program.cs, we registered our AppDB context as a service, and in the controller, we added all CRUD operations. And at the end, we added a scalar to test all our endpoints, and we are able to call all our CRUD operations using entity framework. With this, we are done with the demo. Let's go back to the PPT. That is how you build a fast controller based CRUD API using entity framework core. Writing your AF core queries directly inside your controller is a perfect choice for small project fast MVPs or straightforward microservices where you want minimal abstraction overhead. If the step-by-step code walkthrough helped you to understand data manipulation in .NET, please give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your fellow developers. Drop a comment below if you have any questions or if you have any topic suggestions for the next video, please suggest. Thank you so much for tuning into .NET Mirror, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.